The atmosphere inside St. Michael's Church was as heavy as the grief weighing down Ethan Caldwell's heart. Pale light streamed through stained glass windows, casting soft hues over the wooden pews where mourners sat in silent reverence. Ethan, a 34-year-old white American millionaire, stood motionless before his mother, Evelyn Caldwell's coffin. His tailored black suit hugged his tall frame, but it couldn't hide the emptiness in his amber eyes, an uncommon hue that marked generations of the Caldwell lineage. The priest's voice echoed through the church as he recited prayers, but Ethan barely heard a word. His mind was trapped in memories of his mother, the only woman who had ever seen through the glittering empire of billion-dollar tech success to the real man underneath. Evelyn Caldwell was not just his mother, but his emotional anchor. When he was a little boy growing up in a cramped Brooklyn apartment, she would cradle him in her arms and whisper that he was destined for greatness, so long as he never lost his heart. "Money can't buy you a family, Ethan," she had once said, her eyes tender but firm. "Don't let pride steal what's most precious." Those words now echoed within him, sharp as blades. Evelyn was gone, leaving Ethan with a loneliness no money could erase. He scanned the crowd. Familiar yet distant faces, business partners, high society friends, distant relatives who had appeared suddenly after Evelyn's death. They all wore well-rehearsed expressions of sympathy, but Ethan knew most were there for his name, not for the love of his mother. He tried to focus on the priest's sermon, but a strange feeling made him turn his head. And that's when he saw her. Vanessa Thompson, his ex-lover, stood near a marble column at the far edge of the church, still and quiet like a ghost. The black American woman, with her long, natural curls and soulful brown eyes that once captivated him, now looked anxious and tense. She wore a simple black dress, yet her natural beauty outshone everything around her. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Vanessa had vanished from his life 7 years ago, without a single goodbye after a tearful breakup. Why was she here, at his mother's funeral? But it wasn't Vanessa who stunned him. It was the two little girls beside her, twin girls, about 5 years old, holding tightly to their mother's hands. They looked exactly alike, with neatly braided curls and eyes that shattered Ethan's world. Amber eyes, shimmering like gemstones under the church light, identical to the ones he saw in the mirror every morning. Not just similar, exact. That rare color, the genetic hallmark of the Caldwell bloodline, something Evelyn once proudly called our family's legacy. Ethan's breath caught in his chest, as if the oxygen had vanished from the room. Vanessa must have felt his gaze. Her face paled, eyes wide with panic. She bent down, whispered something to the girls, and quickly ushered them toward the rear exit of the church. One of the girls, the one on the left, turned her head back. Her amber eyes met Ethan's, filled with innocent curiosity. That moment struck like lightning, awakening something buried deep inside him. Who are they? He wondered. But then, a voice inside him rang out, clear, terrifying. "They're your children." The priest continued his prayer, but Ethan heard nothing. He stepped out into the aisle, ignoring the curious stares from the crowd. He murmured, "Excuse me," brushing past a familiar face without looking back. His heart thundered as if it would burst. He had to reach Vanessa. He had to know the truth. He pushed open the church's heavy wooden doors, just as the rain hit him like a punch. Cold water soaked through his suit, making him shiver. He scanned the parking lot, just in time to see a blue Toyota speeding away, taillights fading into the gray curtain of rain. Ethan stood in the downpour, breath ragged. Vanessa was gone, taking with her 2 little girls and a secret that could change his life. He remembered his final moment with his mother, her frail hand gripping his in the hospital, her voice weak but resolute. "Find what truly matters, Ethan. "Don't let me go while you're still lost." At the time, he thought she was talking about his work, about all the days he buried himself in the office instead of being by her side. But now, standing in the rain, he wondered if she had known something, a secret she had taken with her into eternity. He turned back to look at the church, where the bell still rang, blending with the rhythm of the rain. Vanessa had chosen today, the day he buried his mother, to appear with two girls bearing his eyes. That couldn't be a coincidence. Ethan clenched his fists, water dripping through his fingers. He didn't know what lay ahead, but one thing was sure. He wouldn't let Vanessa disappear again. Not when the truth was staring him in the face, in the form of two little girls with amber eyes. The rain kept falling, but Ethan no longer felt cold. A fire had been lit inside him, a fire of determination, yearning for the truth, and perhaps a chance to make things right. He stepped down the church steps, ready to begin a journey he had never prepared for. Vanessa, Ava, Zoe, names he didn't yet know, but that would soon be etched into his life forever. That journey began now, under the gray sky of a fateful rainy day. The rain continued to fall relentlessly as Ethan Caldwell stepped into the black SUV parked in front of St. Michael's Church. He was drenched, rainwater streaming down his angular face, but he didn't bother to wipe it away. The discreet middle-aged driver quietly started the engine and drove him back to his apartment in Manhattan. In the stillness of the car, the image of the two little girls with amber eyes haunted Ethan's thoughts. Who were they? Why had Vanessa Thompson, the woman who had left him 7 years ago, appeared at his mother's funeral with two children who bore the unmistakable mark of the Caldwell bloodline? As the car glided through New York's rain-blurred streets, Ethan closed his eyes and let memory pull him backward. 7 years earlier, he had been just a 27-year-old startup engineer, living in a cramped apartment in Brooklyn with an old laptop and big dreams. Vanessa Thompson had entered his life like a summer breeze, bringing with her a warmth he had never known. She was a psychology student at Columbia University, a black American woman with voluminous curls and a smile that could light up a room. Vanessa worked 3 jobs to pay her tuition, yet never complained. She always found joy in the little things: a hot cup of coffee, a jazz tune on the radio, or the sunset over Central Park. They met at a small cafe when Ethan accidentally spilled coffee on Vanessa's book. She hadn't gotten angry. Instead, she smiled and said, "Let's say you helped me mark the page." From that moment, they became inseparable. On long nights, Vanessa sat across from Ethan in coffee shops, helping him polish his business plan while he quizzed her with flashcards for her exams. They strolled through Central Park, where she pointed out things he had never noticed before: how sunlight danced on the lakeland and children's distant laughter. To Vanessa, life was a series of beautiful moments. To Ethan, she was the light in his darkest days. But when Ethan's tech company began to take off, everything changed. The late-night cafe sessions gave way to investor meetings. Endless business trips replaced leisurely walks. Ethan became obsessed with success, believing that just one more milestone would give Vanessa the life she deserved. He failed to see that Vanessa didn't want mansions or jewelry. She just wanted him, the man who once held her hand under the moonlight and promised they would conquer the world together. The breakup came like a storm. Vanessa had received a PhD scholarship in child psychology at the University of Portland, a dream opportunity. She begged Ethan to go with her, or at least try long distance. But Ethan, at the time, was negotiating $1 million deal and refused. "This is my chance, Vanessa," he said, his voice cold to mask the fear of losing her. "I can't walk away from everything now." Vanessa looked at him, tears rolling down her cheeks. "And what about our chance, Ethan? When did your dream become everything, and I became secondary?" That night, in the new apartment Ethan had just purchased, Vanessa returned the engagement ring he had given her 2 months earlier. The ring sparkled under the light, but when she placed it on the table, its coldness made Ethan feel like he couldn't breathe. "I hope you find what you're looking for," she whispered, voice breaking. "But success without love is just a golden cage, Ethan, and I can't live in it." She left, carrying her luggage and a piece of his heart, leaving him with a hollowness no contract could ever fill. Ethan opened his eyes, returning to the present. The SUV had stopped in front of his building in Manhattan. He entered his dark apartment, where polished wooden floors and glass windows overlooked the New York skyline. But it was all just a facade. He missed his mother, Evelyn, who constantly reminded him of life's values. Once, when he proudly showed her a Forbes article naming him the golden man of tech, Evelyn had smiled sadly. "You've made me proud, Ethan. But I'd be prouder if you found someone to share your joy with instead of sleeping alone with your numbers." At the time, he had laughed it off, thinking his mother didn't understand ambition. Standing in his cold apartment, he realized she had been right. He had lost Vanessa, and perhaps an entire family he had never known existed. Ethan picked up his phone and called Daniel Reed, the private investigator he trusted most. "Find Vanessa Thompson," he said, his voice hoarse. "Where she is, what she's doing, who she's living with. I need to know everything. And check if she has children." He hesitated, the image of the 2 little girls with amber eyes flashing again. "Top priority, Daniel. Money is no object." After ending the call, Ethan sank onto the sofa, his gaze falling on a photo on the shelf. Him and his mother at his college graduation. Evelyn had her arms around him, beaming with pride. "Live for what truly matters, son," she once told him. Ethan clutched the frame, tears trailing down his face. She was gone, but perhaps she had left him with one last chance, a chance to make things right, to reclaim what he had lost. Vanessa, the 2 little girls, and the secret behind those amber eyes were the key. He didn't know what he would find, but Ethan felt a sense of purpose greater than any number in his bank account for the first time in years. Outside, the rain kept falling, but a flame had begun to burn within Ethan. He would find Vanessa, not just to uncover the truth, but to face himself, the man who had chosen wrong and now longed to make amends. Ethan Caldwell's apartment in Manhattan was suffocatingly quiet, the only sound the steady tapping of rain against the glass windows. Ethan sat on the sofa, his eyes fixed on a photo of himself and his mother, Evelyn Caldwell, taken on his college graduation day. Her radiant smile, her hand resting on his shoulder, now felt like a painful reminder of everything he had lost. His mother, the only person who had ever truly seen him, not the tech millionaire on Forbes covers, but the Brooklyn boy who once promised to make her proud, was gone forever. But today, another door opened at her funeral. Vanessa Thompson and 2 little girls with amber eyes exactly like his. Ethan gripped the photo frame, his fingers trembling. The image of the 2 girls, Ava and Zoe, though he didn't yet know their names, drilled into his mind. Those eyes couldn't be a coincidence. They carried the unique amber hue of the Caldwell bloodline, the one his mother had called the mark of the family's heart. Evelyn always believed those eyes weren't genetic, but a reminder of the responsibility to love and protect. "You will find your family, Ethan," she used to say when he was too young and too busy to listen truly. "But you have to open your heart. You have to choose what truly matters." Now, those words echoed in him, urging him to act. He stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the shimmering, rain-soaked city of New York. His life, billion-dollar deals, lavish parties, handshakes with CEOs, had once meant everything. But standing here, alone in a cold apartment, Ethan realized none mattered anymore. Vanessa, the woman he had once loved more than anything, had shown up at his mother's funeral. with two little girls who could be his daughters. Why had she chosen today? Why had she fled when he saw them? The most piercing, painful question tore at his chest. Could he be their father? Ethan picked up his phone and scrolled through his contacts to the number of Daniel Reed, his most trusted private investigator. Daniel, a former FBI agent, had a reputation for being able to find anyone, anywhere. Daniel, Ethan said that when the call connected, his voice horned after the long funeral day. I need you to find someone. Vanessa Thompson. She lived in New York 7 years ago and studied psychology at Columbia. I don't know where she is now. Maybe somewhere else. Find out where she is, what she's doing, and... He paused, taking a deep breath. Check if she has children. 2 girls, about 5 years old. This is a top priority. Daniel, ever professional, asked no unnecessary questions. Understood, Mr. Caldwell. I'll begin immediately. Anything specific I should know? Ethan hesitated, the image of those glowing amber eyes flooding his mind again. Just find her, Daniel, as fast as possible. He ended the call, feeling like he had just stepped over a threshold he could never return from. He returned to the sofa, but couldn't sit still. His thoughts were a storm of regret and hope. He remembered Vanessa, his light when he had nothing but dreams and an old laptop. She had loved him when he had only pride and sleepless nights to offer. But he had pushed her away, choosing ambition over love. The breakup 7 years ago still haunted him. The moment Vanessa returned the engagement ring, telling him she couldn't live in his golden cage. He had let her go, believing success would eventually bring him happiness. But he had been wrong. Success had only brought loneliness. And now, Vanessa might hold the key to something far greater, a family. Ethan stood and walked to his desk, opening his laptop. He typed Vanessa Thompson into the search bar, but the results were only old articles about charity events she had attended while still in New York. On social media, no trace. Vanessa had always been private and authentic, never needing the world's attention. It was something he once loved about her. Now it made him feel desperate. She had vanished completely. Without Daniel, he wouldn't even know where to begin. He closed the laptop. His eyes drifted back to the photo of his mother. Evelyn had always believed that everything happened for a reason. When you're lost, life will show you the way, she had once said when he confided in her about doubting himself. Could Vanessa's appearance at the funeral be a sign left behind by his mother? Ethan didn't believe in fate, but he felt a force greater than himself pushing him forward for the first time. He had to find Vanessa, not only to learn the truth about the 2 girls, but to face the mistakes he had made. His phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. The search has started. Lead on Vanessa in Portland. I will update you soon. Ethan exhaled deeply, though his chest still felt tight. Portland, 3,000 miles from New York. The place Vanessa had once begged him to follow her to. If she was there, living a new life, did he have the right to enter it? Did he even deserve it after everything that had happened? He stood by the window, watching the rain. His mother had taught him that family was life's greatest treasure, and he had ignored that lesson. Now, standing at the edge of a chance to reclaim what was lost, Ethan felt fear, not of failure, but of not being good enough. Not good enough to be a father. Not good enough to be the partner Vanessa and the girls might need. But fear wouldn't stop him. He would find Vanessa, even if it meant facing every painful truth. This was his last chance to make things right, to live for what his mother had always hoped for. 3 days after his mother's funeral, Ethan Caldwell boarded an early flight to Portland, his heart heavy but burning with determination. A message from Daniel Reed, his private investigator, had confirmed it. Vanessa Thompson was living in the Wallingford neighborhood of Portland in a small house with 2 5-year-old twin girls named Ava and Zoe. Daniel had also discovered that Vanessa was a widow. Her husband, pediatric surgeon David Miller, had died in a car accident 2 years earlier. The news brought Ethan a strange mixture of relief and pain. Vanessa had built a new life, but the loss had touched her just as he had lost his mother. Ethan's throat felt dry when the rental car pulled up in front of Vanessa's house. The small blue house, with its white picket fence and flower-filled garden, radiated a warmth his Manhattan apartment had never known. A swing dangled under an oak tree, and colorful chalk drawings decorated the walkway. This was a home, where children laughed and family dinners were treasured, something Ethan hadn't known since living with his mother in Brooklyn. He took a deep breath and stepped out of the car, each footstep heavier than the last. Standing at the door, he raised his hand to knock, but hesitated. What if Vanessa rejected him? What if the girls weren't his? Or worse, what if they were his, and Vanessa had hidden them from him for 5 years? Before he could think further, the door swung open. A small girl with neatly braided curls and shimmering amber eyes stared up at him. "Mom, there's a stranger!" she called out, her voice precise and cautious. With a dish towel and her curly hair tied up high, Vanessa appeared moments later. Her face, still as beautiful as Ethan remembered, went pale when she recognized him. "Ethan," she whispered, as if his name were a curse. Her dark brown eyes scanned him, from his simple suit to his clenched hands, then locked with his gaze. The very eyes she once loved and now saw reflected in her daughters. "Vanessa," Ethan replied, his voice hoarse, "we need to talk." He looked at the little girl, and another identical girl appeared, except for a small scar on her forehead. Ava and Zoe, he guessed. His heart clenched at the sight of their amber eyes. Undeniable, unmistakable, the legacy of the Caldwell bloodline. Vanessa turned to the girls, her voice calm but trembling. "Ava, Zoe, go inside. Mommy needs to talk to an old friend." The girls looked at Ethan with innocent curiosity, then obediently ran into the house, leaving a heavy silence between the two adults. Vanessa stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind her. Her eyes were now cold and sharp. "What are you doing here, Ethan? How did you find me?" "It doesn't matter," Ethan said, stepping closer. "Those girls, Ava and Zoe, they're my daughters, aren't they?" The question hung like a blade, slicing through 7 years of separation. Vanessa tightened her grip on the towel, her lips pressed together. Ethan saw pain flash in her eyes for a moment, but she quickly masked it with resolve. "You don't have the right to ask that," she said, her voice low and sharp. "You chose your path, Ethan, and I chose mine. Now you show up, after all these years, demanding answers? Do you think you deserve them?" Her words hit Ethan like a punch. He wanted to argue, to tell her he had changed, but the memory of their breakup held him back. He had abandoned Vanessa, choosing ambition over love. But now, standing at her door, he couldn't ignore the truth staring him in the face. "Vanessa, I saw their eyes. Those eyes look just like mine, just like my mother's. I'm not stupid. Just tell me the truth." Vanessa turned away, looking out at the garden, where Ava and Zoe's laughter drifted from inside the house. She took a deep breath as if gathering all her strength. "Fine," she said, at last, her voice breaking. "They're your daughters. Ava and Zoe are our children." The admission hit Ethan like a tidal wave, washing away every defense he had. He staggered back, gripping the porch railing for balance. He had children, 2 little girls, living and growing up without him for the past 5 years. "Why?" he asked, his voice cracking with pain and anger. "Why didn't you tell me? Did you think I didn't deserve to know?" Vanessa turned back to him, her eyes shimmering with tears. "Because I know you, Ethan. I know what you would have done. You would have made them part of your empire, thrown money at them, hired nannies, sent them to elite boarding schools. Or worse, you would have seen them as burdens, distractions from your big dreams. I couldn't let my daughters grow up feeling like they were second best." Her words cut deep, and Ethan couldn't deny the truth in them. The man he once was, who chose his startup over Vanessa, might have done exactly what she feared. But he wasn't that man anymore. Or at least, he didn't want to be. "You're wrong," he said, voice trembling. "I may not be perfect, but I would never see them as burdens. They're my daughters, Vanessa. You had no right to take away my chance to be a father." Vanessa shook her head, a bitter smile forming on her lips. "Chance? Ethan, you had your chance. 7 years ago when I begged you to stay. You walked away. I had to build this life alone. For me, Ava, and Zoe. You don't get to walk in now and demand everything just because you finally want it." Ethan wanted to fight back, but Vanessa's eyes, filled with pain and fierce protection, silenced him. She was right, in part. He had hurt her. And now, the consequences of those choices stood before him. A family he never knew, and a woman who once loved him, now looked at him like a stranger. "I'm not here to demand anything," he said, at last, his voice softer. "I want to know them. I want to fix what I broke." Vanessa looked at him, her eyes softening momentarily, as if recalling the man she once loved. But then she shook her head. "I don't know if I can trust you, Ethan. Not yet. I need time, and my daughters need protection." She opened the door, preparing to go back inside. "Let me think. But I'm warning you, if you hurt Ava or Zoe, I will never forgive you." The door closed, leaving Ethan alone on the porch. Laughter from inside echoed faintly, reminding him of what he stood to lose. He walked back to the car, heart heavy, but resolute. Vanessa might not believe him yet, but he would prove he had changed. Not through words, but actions. He would stay in Portland, however long it took, to become the father Ava and Zoe deserved. The wooden door closed behind Vanessa Thompson, separating her from Ethan Caldwell and the emotional storm he had brought. The small house in Wallingford, Portland, returned to its quiet rhythm. Only the soft giggles of Ava and Zoe echoed from the living room, where the girls were playing with their building blocks. Vanessa leaned against the door, clutching the dish towel tightly in her hands, her breath unsteady. Ethan had found her. After 7 years, the man she once loved deeply, the man she had hoped would become her whole world, was now standing on her doorstep, demanding the truth about the 2 children she had kept hidden from him for 5 years. She stepped into the kitchen, trying to focus on clearing the dishes, but her thoughts were spinning. The image of Ethan, tall, with sharp amber eyes and a voice hoarse with emotion, cut deep into her. He looked different now. She is no longer the proud startup dreamer she had once known, and she is not the pretty cold millionaire from the magazine covers either. Something in his eyes, a sincerity laced with pain, made her heart ache. But Vanessa couldn't afford to be swayed by emotion. She had built a safe life for Ava and Zoe, and could not risk that being shattered. Vanessa sat down at the kitchen table, her eyes drifting to a photo on the wall. Her, David Miller, and the girls during a trip to the park 2 years ago. With his gentle smile and arms always ready to hold their children, David had given her the stability Ethan never could. When David died in a car accident, Vanessa felt as though her heart had shattered forever. But for Ava and Zoe, she stood back up, working as a community psychologist and raising her girls with all her love and strength. Now, Ethan threatened to unravel it all. She remembered the day she discovered she was pregnant, just weeks after leaving New York. Fear had overwhelmed her. She had stood before a mirror, her hand resting on her belly, imagining telling Ethan. But his image in his new apartment, lost in meetings and billion-dollar dreams, made her hesitate. She knew what he would do. Either he'd try to control everything, making Ava and Zoe part of his empire through money and influence. Or worse, he'd see them as burdens, obstacles to his ambition. Vanessa couldn't let her daughters grow up feeling unwanted. She felt the same way when Ethan chose his career over her. So why did I tell him the truth? Vanessa asked herself, fingers tangled in her curly hair. She could have denied it. She could have sent Ethan away. But when he looked at her, with the same eyes as Ava and Zoe, she couldn't lie. The truth slipped out. And now, she had to face the consequences. What if Ethan wanted custody? What if he used money and lawyers to take the girls away? Or worse, what if he came into their lives, made them love him, and then vanished again as he had with her? Tiny footsteps pulled Vanessa from her thoughts. With a small scar on her forehead, Zoe stood at the kitchen doorway holding a doll. "Mommy, who was that man?" the little girl asked, her amber eyes glowing with curiosity. Vanessa forced a smile, kneeling in front of her. "Just someone Mommy used to know, sweetheart. Don't worry, okay?" Zoe nodded, but her eyes still held questions, as if she sensed something far bigger than her years could understand. When Zoe returned to the living room, Vanessa felt a wave of guilt rise. Ava and Zoe were the center of her world, and she had done everything to protect them. But had she been right to hide Ethan? She remembered the nights when Ava asked about her real dad, or how Zoe quietly drew family pictures with a vague, faceless man beside them. Her daughters deserved a father. But could Ethan be that man? The man who once abandoned her? The man who chose his dreams over their love? Vanessa stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the garden where Ava and Zoe once played under the sunlight. She remembered an afternoon with David, how he held the girls and told her that family is where you choose to love, no matter your past. David had loved her daughters as if they were his own. And Vanessa wondered, could Ethan ever do the same? Part of her, the part that still loved Ethan, no matter how hard she tried to bury it, hoped he had changed. But the larger part, the mother, warned her to be cautious. Ava and Zoe had already lost David. She couldn't let them lose someone else. She picked up her phone, her finger hovering over her contact list, pausing at the number of a lawyer friend. If Ethan tried to claim custody, she would be prepared. But deep down, Vanessa prayed it wouldn't come to that. She turned back to the photo of David and whispered, "Please give me strength, David. Please help me do what's right for our girls." Outside, the Portland sunset burned the sky in crimson. A quiet reminder that tomorrow would bring new trials. Vanessa took a deep breath, bracing herself to face Ethan again. Not for him, but for Ava and Zoe, the two brightest stars in her life. The morning in Portland was gentle, with sunlight filtering through the trees. But a storm was still raging inside Vanessa Thompson. After the confrontation with Ethan Caldwell, she had spent a sleepless night, torn between protecting Ava and Zoe from potential hurt and giving Ethan a chance to prove he had changed. Ultimately, she decided that he could meet the girls, but only on her terms, slowly and safely. "Just one visit," she told Ethan over the phone, her voice cautious. "I won't give you a second chance if you make them sad." Ethan arrived at Vanessa's house on Saturday morning, carrying a bag of muffins from a local bakery Vanessa used to love. He wore a simple button-up shirt and jeans, trying to look more like a neighbor than a New York millionaire. Ava and Zoe stood behind Vanessa when the door opened, peeking at the stranger with the same amber eyes he saw in the mirror. Vanessa introduced him neutrally. "This is Mr. Ethan, an old friend of Mommy's." She knelt and hugged her daughters, offering a reassuring look. "You can act naturally, okay? But if you feel uncomfortable, tell Mommy." Ava, the bold one with neatly braided hair, stepped forward and stared at Ethan. "You have the same eyes as us," she said bluntly, making Vanessa freeze. Zoe, the shy one with the small scar on her forehead, hid behind her mother, but her eyes never left Ethan. He smiled and knelt to their level. "You both have gorgeous eyes, too," he said gently. "Who likes strawberry muffins?" Zoe timidly raised her hand, and the air softened. They sat in the backyard under the shade of the oak tree, where the swing swayed gently. Ethan patiently listened as Ava excitedly described her school soccer team, while Zoe shyly showed him a drawing she had made. Vanessa watched from a distance, her heart racing. She saw how Ethan paid attention to every word her daughters said, how he laughed when Ava reenacted a goal and praised Zoe's drawing as if it were a masterpiece. But she was still afraid. Ethan might be sincere now, but what would happen if work called him back to New York? Would he abandon the girls the same way he once abandoned her? Meanwhile, Ethan felt like he was walking a tightrope. Ava and Zoe were tiny wonders, with Vanessa's smile and the Caldwell amber gaze. Every word they spoke and gesture warmed his heart and broke it all at once. He had missed the first 5 years of their lives, the first steps, first words, sleepless nights crying for a father. He remembered his mother Evelyn's words. "Family is where you'll find meaning, Ethan." That truth was now his compass, guiding him to become the father his daughters needed. The visit lasted through lunch when Vanessa called the girls to eat. Before leaving, Ethan turned to her, his eyes sincere. "Thank you, Vanessa. I know you didn't have to do this. I'd like to see them again if you're willing." Vanessa looked at him and saw a different Ethan. Not the arrogant man who once chose ambition, but someone trying to make things right. "I'll think about it," she replied, her voice softer. "But Ethan, those girls are my whole world. Please don't hurt them." Ethan stayed in Portland in the following weeks, renting a small apartment near Vanessa's home. He showed up consistently, bringing sweets or picture books, and joining Ava and Zoe's activities. He cheered for Ava at a soccer match, sitting in the back row to avoid attention. He attended Zoe's art class, quietly watching her mix colors with focused delight. Vanessa, though still guarded, began to notice Ethan's patience. He didn't pressure her. He didn't use money to impress. He showed up. One evening, as Ethan read a bedtime story, Ava yawned and asked, "Mr. Ethan, are you going to stay forever? Like Daddy David used to?" The innocent question cut like a blade, and Vanessa froze at the doorway. Ethan looked at her, silently asking permission, then replied gently, "I want to stay, Ava, but I must try hard to ensure your mom says yes, okay?" Ava nodded, hugging her pillow. Zoe whispered, "I like your stories." Vanessa turned away, tears silently falling. She was scared, but also hopeful. "I hope that Ethan can become the father her daughters deserve." As Ethan left Vanessa's home that night, his heart was whole. Ava and Zoe had begun to trust him, and Vanessa, though still wary, no longer looked at him like an enemy. But he knew the journey was far from over. He had to prove, not only to Vanessa, but to himself, that he could put family first. Under the Portland stars, Ethan whispered to his mother, "I'm trying, Mom. I hope you're proud of me." And he walked on, more determined than ever, ready for whatever trials lay ahead. Thursday morning in Portland began like any other, with soft sunlight filtering through the windows of Vanessa Thompson's house. When the phone rang, She was brewing coffee and getting ready to take Ava and Zoe to school. An unknown number, but the voice on the other end stopped her heart. "Ms. Thompson, this is Inspector Rachel Carter from the Portland Police Department. We need to contact you regarding Ethan Caldwell. He was arrested this morning on charges of securities fraud and embezzlement." Vanessa gripped the kitchen counter, her mind reeling. Ethan, the man she had only just begun to trust, and who had become a part of Ava and Zoe's lives, was a criminal? She quickly arranged for a friend to take the girls to school and drove to the Multnomah County Jail, her heart heavy in her chest. In the visitation room, Ethan appeared behind the glass. Gone was his usual suit, replaced by a gray inmate uniform. His face looked gaunt, but his amber eyes still burned brightly. "Vanessa," he said on the phone, in a hoarse voice. "I'm sorry. I didn't want you to find out this way." Vanessa gripped the receiver tightly, struggling to keep her voice steady. "Find out what, Ethan? That you're a fraud? That everything you said about changing was a lie?" Ethan bowed, rubbing his forehead as if trying to chase away a migraine. "It's not like that," he said, his voice trembling. "I didn't embezzle. But 6 years ago, when my company was about to go under, I approved some shady transactions. I moved money through offshore accounts to cover financial gaps, thinking I'd fix it once things stabilized. I never took a cent for myself, but those transactions were illegal. I don't know who reported it to the FBI, and now they think I orchestrated a massive fraud." Vanessa felt the ground beneath her collapse. She had opened her heart to Ethan and let him into Ava and Zoe's lives, only to find that he had carried a dark past. She said coldly that you knew it was wrong and did it anyway. "You let me believe you were a trustworthy father, but you're just a liar." Ethan looked up, desperation burning in his eyes. "I didn't lie about the girls, Vanessa. What I feel for Ava and Zoe, for you, it's real. I made mistakes, but I'm trying to make things right." But Vanessa couldn't listen. She remembered the night Ava asked about Uncle Ethan and how Zoe clutched his hand during story time. She had let them grow attached to him, and now he might disappear, leaving them heartbroken. "You promised to stay," she said, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You promised Ava. You promised Zoe. And now you're here, behind bars, and I have to explain to my daughters that the man they trusted is a criminal. Do you know what that will do to them?" Ethan slammed his hand against the glass, his voice breaking. "I know, Vanessa. I know I don't deserve them, but I swear I didn't do what they said. I'll fight this. I'll clear my name. Don't turn your back on me. Not for me, for them." Vanessa shook her head, her heart torn apart. "I can't risk Ava and Zoe, Ethan. They had already lost David. I won't let them lose another father, only to be broken by you." She stood, letting the receiver drop with a dull thud. Ethan called her name, his voice lost behind the glass, but she didn't turn around. She walked out of the jail into the Portland sunlight, which now felt like mockery. She collapsed over the steering wheel in her car, tears flowing freely. She had started to believe Ethan could change, that he could be the father Ava and Zoe needed. But now, all she saw was betrayal. She blamed herself for letting him in, for letting the girls hope for a family that might never exist. Back home, Vanessa masked her pain from Ava and Zoe. But when she told them Uncle Ethan had to go on a work trip for a while, Ava looked straight into her mother's eyes, wise beyond her 5 years. "He's coming back," he promised. Vanessa held her daughter tightly, her voice cracking. "I don't know, sweetheart, but Mommy will always be here, for you and Zoe." Zoe, ever quiet, clutched her doll tighter, her amber eyes clouded with sorrow. That night, Vanessa lay awake staring at the ceiling. She thought of David, the man who had always put family first, and wondered if she was wrong to compare Ethan to him. But the fear was too intense. Fear that Ethan would hurt her daughters. Fear that she had opened her heart to the wrong man again. She picked up her phone and searched for Ethan's number, but didn't call. Instead, she texted a lawyer friend, asking about custody rights in case Ethan tried to contest. She had to protect Ava and Zoe, even if her heart ached with every breath. Meanwhile, Ethan sat on his cot in jail, his mind in chaos. He knew he had been wrong to hide his past, but he hadn't expected it to destroy his chance at family. He thought of Ava and Zoe, their smiles, their voices, and Vanessa, the woman he had never stopped loving. He clenched his fists with resolve. He would fight to clear his name, not just for himself, but for his daughters. But deep down, a chilling thought haunted him. Maybe Vanessa was right. Perhaps he would never be worthy of them. In the days following Ethan Caldwell's arrest, Vanessa Thompson's small home in Wallingford, Portland, fell under a quiet gloom. Vanessa tried to keep everything normal for Ava and Zoe, but Ethan's absence, someone the girls had begun to cherish, left a void that couldn't be concealed. She spent her days working at the Community Psychology Center, helping families through crisis. But at home, she faced her greatest challenge, explaining to two 5-year-old girls that Uncle Ethan might not be coming back. On Monday evening, Vanessa sat at the dinner table with Ava and Zoe, trying to keep her voice cheerful. "Who wants to tell me about their day at school?" she asked, placing plates of pasta in front of them. Zoe, who usually chattered about her art class, just quietly stirred her food, her amber eyes full of sadness. Ava, the stronger-willed one, looked directly at her mother. "Mommy, where's Uncle Ethan? He promised to come to my soccer game this week." Ava's innocent words cut like a knife. Vanessa inhaled deeply, taking her daughter's hands. "My loves, we need to talk about something important. Uncle Ethan is having some problems at work. He has to go away for a while to fix things." Zoe looked up, the small scar on her forehead catching the kitchen light. "Like when Daddy David went away?" she asked, voice trembling. Vanessa felt her heart shatter. David, the girl's adoptive father, had passed away 2 years earlier, and the shadow of that loss still lingered. "No, sweetheart," she said gently but firmly. "It's not like Daddy David. Uncle Ethan isn't sick or hurt. But I don't know when he'll be back." Ava pushed her plate away, eyes brimming with tears. "But he promised. He said he'd stay forever." She stood up and ran to her room, her sobs echoing down the hallway. Zoe remained seated, clutching her doll, whispering, "I drew a picture for Uncle Ethan, but now he can't see it." Vanessa pulled Zoe into her arms, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. She blamed herself for letting Ethan into their lives, for allowing her daughters hope for a father, only for them to be hurt once again. In the following days, Vanessa noticed the changes. Ava grew quieter, refusing to attend her beloved soccer practices. She tucked her cleats into the back of the closet, saying, "There's no one coming to watch me play anyway." Zoe, more sensitive, began having nightmares, waking up crying for Uncle Ethan. Vanessa sat beside her bed, rocking her gently and singing lullabies. But each time, she felt helpless. As a psychologist, she knew children needed time to process loss. But as a mother, she couldn't bear to watch her daughters in pain. Vanessa wrestled with herself too. She had cut off all contact with Ethan after the jail visit, determined to protect her children. But each night, after the girls had fallen asleep, she would sit beneath the photo on the wall, her, David, Ava, and Zoe, and wonder if she had judged Ethan too quickly. He had admitted to past mistakes, but swore he hadn't embezzled. She remembered the look in his eyes through the jail glass, desperate but sincere. Was it possible she had been wrong? That Ethan truly wanted to be a good father? As she picked the girls up one afternoon, Ava silently handed her a drawing from art class. It was a picture of a family. A curly-haired woman, 2 little girls, and a tall man with amber eyes. "That's Uncle Ethan," Ava said in a small voice. "I drew him because I miss him." Vanessa hugged her daughter tightly, heart aching. She realized that no matter how hard she tried to shield them, her daughters had grown to love Ethan, and his absence had left a deep wound. That night, Vanessa sat in the living room, staring at Ava's drawing. She remembered Ethan reading bedtime stories, listening patiently to Zoe talk about colors, and cheering for Ava on the soccer field. She began to doubt her decision. If Ethan was truly innocent, if he had been falsely accused, then cutting him off from their lives might have been a mistake. But fear that Ethan would hurt Ava and Zoe, fear that she had once again opened her heart to the wrong man, still held her back. She picked up her phone, her finger hovering over Daniel Reed's number, Ethan's private investigator. She wanted to ask if there was any truth behind Ethan's claims, but instead, she hesitated. She messaged her lawyer friend again, asking how to protect her custody rights if Ethan got out and tried to claim the girls. She needed to prepare for the worst, but deep down, she hoped it wouldn't come to that. She looked out the window, the moonlight casting silver across the garden, and whispered, "David, please, help me do what's right for our daughters." Meanwhile, in jail, Ethan lay on his bunk, eyes hollow. He thought about Ava and Zoe, their smiles, their laughter, Zoe's little drawing. He knew Vanessa didn't want to hear from him, but he couldn't give up. He wrote a letter, knowing it might never reach her. "Vanessa, I don't blame you for protecting them, but I swear, I will clear my name for Ava and Zoe. They are the reason I keep going." He folded the letter carefully, hoping that someday Vanessa would read it and believe him. A month had passed since Ethan Caldwell's arrest, and Vanessa Thompson was living in a whirlpool of pain and doubt. Each day, she tried to wear a smile for Ava and Zoe, but Ethan's absence had carved an unfillable space in their tiny home in Wallingford, Portland. Ava no longer mentioned soccer, and Zoe often sat alone, drawing sad pictures of a man with amber eyes. Vanessa, as a psychologist, understood that her daughters were processing grief, but as a mother, she felt helpless to ease their pain. While shopping at the local grocery store one Saturday morning, Vanessa unexpectedly ran into Daniel Reed, Ethan's private investigator. He was dressed casually in a jacket, pushing a shopping cart with a little girl riding in the front, a far cry from his image as a former FBI agent. "Vanessa," Daniel called, his voice friendly but cautious. "I need to talk to you. About Ethan." Vanessa froze, her grip tightening on the shopping cart handle. "I don't want to hear anything more about him, Daniel. He lied, and now my children are the ones suffering." Daniel shook his head, his expression serious. "You've misunderstood. Ethan isn't behind the embezzlement. He was set up by Nathan Brooks, his former business partner." Vanessa frowned, torn between the instinct to walk away and the sincerity in Daniel's voice. Nathan manipulated the offshore transactions that Ethan had approved 6 years ago, and Daniel continued. "When the FBI began investigating, Nathan shifted all the evidence toward Ethan. He threatened to drag you and the girls into it if Ethan resisted. Ethan chose silence to protect you." Daniel's words hit Vanessa like a jolt. She remembered Ethan's desperate eyes at the jail, his vow to fight for Ava and Zoe. "Why didn't he tell me?" she asked, her voice trembling. Daniel pulled out his phone and opened an email from an anonymous source. This is what I found. Emails between Nathan and an accountant, detailing instructions to funnel money into a secret account. And this recording. He played an audio clip. Nathan's voice echoed, cold, arrogant, and unmistakably smug. Ethan's the perfect scapegoat. He trusted me too much, too distracted by playing family man to see it coming. Vanessa clutched the cart, her head spinning. If what Daniel said was true, Ethan wasn't just innocent. He had sacrificed his freedom to protect her and their daughters. But she had turned her back on him, left him alone in a cell. Guilt surged within her, tangled with fear. She had built a wall to shield Ava and Zoe. But if Ethan hadn't betrayed them, had she instead stolen from them the chance to have a father? Daniel handed her a business card. I'm working with Clara Brooks, Nathan's ex-wife. She has more evidence, documents and audio recordings, enough to overturn the case. But we need you, Vanessa. Ethan has given up. He believes you and the girls don't want him anymore. If you believe in him, help us. Vanessa stared at the card, torn. She thought of Ava's drawing, of a family with Ethan in it. Zoe's whispered dreams of Uncle Ethan. The ache in their little hearts that even bedtime stories couldn't soothe. That evening, Vanessa met Clara Brooks at a small cafe in downtown Portland. Clara, an elegant but visibly tired woman, shared her story of a toxic marriage to Nathan. He always needed control, always had something to hide, Clara said, handing Vanessa a USB drive. These are the files I found. Emails, forged contracts, and recordings of Nathan bragging about framing Ethan. I kept them because I was afraid he'd come after me. But when I heard about your girls, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Vanessa held the USB, feeling its weight like 1,000 pounds. She thought of Ava and Zoe, their cries for Ethan at night, and she asked herself if she had the strength to fight for him. Back home, Vanessa sat at the kitchen table, staring at Ava's drawing. She remembered Ethan reading bedtime stories, the way he patiently listened to Zoe talk about colors, the time he skipped Ava's soccer match to sit by Zoe's side when she had a fever. She had believed he was a liar, but maybe she had been wrong. She opened her laptop, plugged in Clara's USB, and scanned through the files. Each email and recording was a piece of a puzzle, painting a portrait of Nathan's betrayal. Vanessa's chest burned with fury, not just at Nathan, but at herself for doubting Ethan. She picked up her phone and called Daniel. "I'll help," she said, her voice firm. "Please tell me what I need to do to clear Ethan's name." Daniel exhaled with relief. "Thank you, Vanessa. I'll loop in the legal team. But more than anything, you need to visit Ethan. He must know you believe him, that the girls still need him." Vanessa nodded, though Daniel couldn't see her. She looked out the window at the backyard, where the moonlight spilled over the swing Ethan once pushed for Ava and Zoe. For the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of hope. "I hope that she can make things right. Not just for Ethan, but for her family." Vanessa Thompson stood outside the Multnomah County Jail, her heart pounding. It had been a month since she last saw Ethan Caldwell through the glass partition, when she walked away, consumed by a sense of betrayal. But after meeting with Daniel Reed and Clara Brooks, and seeing the evidence that Ethan had been framed, Vanessa knew she had to face him again, not just to speak the truth, but to tell him that Ava and Zoe still needed him. And maybe, so did she. She took a deep breath, signed the visitation log, and entered the cold waiting room. Ethan appeared behind the glass. He looked thinner, his hair unkempt, and his amber eyes now hollow, like hope had abandoned him entirely. Vanessa was startled by the change. The man who once told bedtime stories, calmly cheered at soccer games, and listened to Zoe's ramblings about color, was now just a shadow of himself. He picked up the phone, his voice faint. "Vanessa, you shouldn't be here. I don't want you to see me like this." Vanessa gripped the receiver, her voice steady. "Daniel Reed told me. About Nathan Brooks. About how you were framed. You stayed silent to protect me and the girls, didn't you?" Ethan blinked, surprised, then lowered his head. "Daniel shouldn't have said anything," he murmured. "I didn't want you and the girls dragged into this. Nathan threatened to investigate you to disrupt Ava and Zoe's lives. I'd rather sit here than let him hurt our family." A surge of emotion rose in Vanessa. Anger that Ethan hadn't told her. Relief that he was innocent. Guilt for doubting him. "Ethan, you can't give up," she said, her voice shaking. "Ava and Zoe need you. They ask about you all the time." Ethan looked up, tears shining in his eyes. "Do they still remember me?" Vanessa nodded, trying to hold back her tears. "Ava keeps the drawing she made of you by her bed. Zoe sometimes leaves a chair empty at the dinner table and says, 'Just in case Uncle Ethan comes home.' They don't need your money or your apologies. They need you to fight, to come back to them." Her words were a beam of light piercing through the darkness inside Ethan. He placed his hand on the glass, his voice cracking. "I don't know if I have the strength to fight anymore, Vanessa. I've lost you. I've lost them. I thought maybe the best thing would be if they forgot me." Like an invisible promise, Vanessa placed her hand on the glass opposite his. "You haven't lost us," she said firmly. "I was wrong to walk away. I was scared. Scared the girls would be hurt again. But I'm here now, and I'm helping Daniel clear your name. But you have to want it, Ethan. You have to want to come back to us." Ethan looked into her eyes and saw the pain, the belief, and the strength she still carried. For the first time in weeks, he felt a flicker of hope. "I want to come back," he whispered, "more than I want to breathe." Vanessa told him about Clara's evidence, emails, recordings, and documents proving Nathan's manipulation. "Daniel's working with a lawyer, Sarah Kim," she explained. "They believe we can overturn this. But I need you to fight, Ethan. For Ava, for Zoe, for yourself." Ethan nodded, tears rolling down his cheeks. "I'll fight," he said, his voice stronger. "I'll do whatever it takes to come back to them. To you. Thank you, Vanessa, for not giving up on me." When Vanessa left the jail, she felt a newfound strength within her. She had once feared reopening her heart to Ethan, but seeing him broken and hearing about his sacrifice, she realized he was no longer the man who abandoned her 7 years ago. He had changed, and so had she. She thought of Ava and Zoe, Ava's drawing, and Zoe's dreams. Her daughters needed their father, and she would do everything she could to bring him home. Back home, Vanessa sat with Ava and Zoe, ready to tell them part of the truth. "My loves, I need to talk to you about Uncle Ethan," she began, wrapping them in her arms. "He's in big trouble, but not because he did something bad like people say. Mommy and some people are trying to help him come back." Ava's amber eyes lit up. "Mommy? Uncle Ethan's coming back?" Zoe chimed in. "I want him to tell stories again." Vanessa smiled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I hope so, sweetheart. I'm going to do everything I can." That night, Vanessa opened her laptop and reviewed Clara's USB again. She took notes and prepared to assist Daniel and Sarah Kim. She thought of Ethan and his promise in that jail cell. She didn't know if he would be able to keep it, but for the first time, she believed he would try. Looking out at the moonlit garden, Vanessa whispered, "David, please watch over us. Please help me do what's right." She knew the road ahead would be hard, but for Ava, Zoe, and for Ethan, she was ready to fight. The courtroom at Multnomah County Courthouse was packed on a Tuesday morning in March, the air taut like a string pulled to its breaking point. Vanessa Thompson sat in the gallery, clutching the hands of Ava and Zoe, her 5-year-old daughters with bright amber eyes. The girls were dressed neatly in matching uniforms, their hair carefully braided, but their eyes never left Ethan Caldwell, seated at the defendant's table. After 3 tireless months working with Daniel Reed and attorney Sarah Kim, Vanessa prayed that today, finally, the truth would come to light, and Ethan would return home to his family. Ethan, though physically healthier after his time in jail, looked tense. He wore a dark blue suit, his amber eyes scanning the courtroom before landing on Vanessa and the girls. A faint smile flickered across his lips, as if trying to reassure them. Vanessa returned a slight nod, her heart racing. She remembered the moment in the prison visitation room when Ethan promised to fight for Ava and Zoe. She believed him now, but fear still lingered. Fear that the justice system might take him away again. Judge Laura Bennett, a stern woman with sharp eyes, banged the gavel and called for silence. Sarah Kim stood up, her voice steady and clear. Your Honor, we present newly discovered evidence proving the innocence of my client, Ethan Caldwell, and revealing the manipulation orchestrated by Nathan Brooks. Sarah laid out the documents from Clara Brooks, emails, falsified contracts, and a recorded confession of Nathan boasting about setting Ethan up. Each piece of evidence painted a chilling portrait of betrayal. Nathan Brooks had embezzled millions and pinned the blame on Ethan, his former business partner. Vanessa kept glancing at Ava and Zoe, worried the intense atmosphere might overwhelm them. But Ava, consistently strong, leaned over and whispered, Mom, Uncle Ethan's going to win. Zoe clutched her mother's hand and added, I want him to come home. Vanessa hugged her daughters, silent tears falling. She had brought them to court knowing the risk, knowing it could end in disappointment. But they had insisted, we want to see Uncle Ethan be free. Their conviction made her both proud and heartbroken. When Sarah played the recording of Nathan's voice, the courtroom stirred. Ethan was the perfect scapegoat, Nathan said, smug and self-assured. He was too busy loving his new little family to notice I pinned it all on him. The prosecutor attempted to counter, but the evidence was overwhelming. As Ethan's shoulders relaxed, Vanessa watched as if a great weight had finally lifted. He turned, searching the crowd, his gaze locking with Vanessa's and their daughters, filled with tears and something else. Hope. After a brief recess, Judge Bennett returned with her ruling. After reviewing the new evidence, she said, her voice steady and resonant, that this court found signs of manipulation and misconduct during the original investigation. All charges against Ethan Caldwell are hereby dismissed with prejudice. Mr. Caldwell, you are free to go. The courtroom erupted. Reporters surged forward, and flashes burst across the room. But Vanessa only saw Ethan. He turned around, tears streaking down his face. Ava and Zoe leapt from their seats, shouting, Uncle Ethan! Uncle Ethan! They ran toward the barrier, only to be held back by security. But then Judge Bennett raised a hand and, for the first time that day, smiled. Let them through. This family has waited long enough. Ethan dropped to his knees as Ava and Zoe flew into his arms. He held them tight, afraid they might vanish. I'm sorry it took so long, he whispered, voice cracking. Ava, always honest, asked, You beat the bad guys. Zoe added, Will you tell stories again? Ethan laughed through tears. Every night, if you want me to. Vanessa watched, her heart overflowing. She had fought for Ethan, not just for his sake, but for Ava and Zoe. She stepped forward, and Ethan looked up, eyes brimming with gratitude. Thank you, he said hoarsely. Thank you for believing in me, and for bringing me back. Vanessa smiled, her tears falling. I didn't do it for you, Ethan. I did it for the girls, and because I know now, you're the father they need." Outside the courthouse, Daniel Reed and Clara Brooks waited. Clara, her face visibly relieved, said, "Nathan was arrested this morning. He won't hurt anyone else." Vanessa took Clara's hand, thanking her for her bravery. Daniel clapped Ethan on the shoulder. "Welcome back, my friend." Ethan nodded, but his eyes never left Vanessa and the girls. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. He would have to rebuild trust and become the father they deserved. But for the first time in years, he truly believed he could. As they left the courthouse, Ava and Zoe held Ethan's hands, chattering about everything they wanted to do with Uncle Ethan. Vanessa walked beside him, a quiet smile on her face. She had been terrified of opening her heart again. But today, seeing Ethan hold their daughters, she knew she was right to fight for him. Beneath the clear Portland sky, they walked forward. Not perfect, but whole, and filled with love. Ready for a second chance. 1 year after the fateful trial, the summer sun cast golden light across the backyard of the new home shared by Vanessa Thompson and Ethan Caldwell in Portland. The house, with its white picket fence and teal roof, was one they chose together. Not Ethan's luxurious Manhattan penthouse, Vanessa's cramped old home in Wallingford, but a true home, where Ava and Zoe's laughter echoed through the air daily. Ethan, now a devoted father, was clumsily assembling a wooden swing set while Ava and Zoe helped by handing him the wrong screws and arguing over the instructions. "Dad, that part goes upside down," said Ava, now 6, with the confidence of a natural leader. Zoe, her little scar still visible on her forehead, shook her head. "No, it goes on top, Ava." Ethan burst into laughter, wiping sweat from his brow. "You two are brilliant engineers," he teased, lifting one in each arm and spinning them around in the sunshine. Their giggles mixed with birdsong, forming a perfect symphony of joy. Vanessa stood at the back door, holding a tray of lemonade, her heart overflowing. A year ago, she never dared to dream of this day, a reunited family where Ethan wasn't just a father on paper, but one the girls adored. After being exonerated, Ethan kept his promise. He restructured his company, sold off time-consuming projects, and shifted his focus to sustainable investments, working from home so he could be present. He learned to braid Ava's hair, clumsily, bake animal-shaped cookies with Zoe, and could recite Goodnight Moon by heart. Vanessa, too, had grown. She completed her PhD thesis on childhood resilience after family trauma, inspired by her journey. Despite offers from prestigious universities, she chose to stay at the Community Psychology Center, helping families like the one she once was. 6 months ago, she and Ethan were married in a simple backyard ceremony at her old home, with Ava and Zoe as flower girls. The wedding ring once worn by Ethan's mother, Evelyn, now graced Vanessa's hand, a reminder of the lesson Evelyn had left behind. Family is everything. Ethan Caldwell, if those girls fall off that swing, you're in big trouble, Vanessa called, her tone playful. Ethan winked, setting Ava on the swing. Relax, I'm a brilliant entrepreneur. I can read instructions. Vanessa pointed to the manual in his hands. Sure, but you're holding it upside down. The girls burst into laughter, running to hug their mother, leaving Ethan mock pouting behind them. The afternoon melted into games and laughter. As the sun set, Ethan and Vanessa sat on the porch, watching Ava and Zoe chase each other across the yard. Vanessa, Ethan said, his voice low and full. There's something I've been meaning to say. She turned, meeting his earnest gaze. I never thanked you properly. You saved me, not just from prison, but from myself. You and the girls gave me a life worth living. Vanessa took his hand, feeling its familiar warmth. We saved each other, Ethan. I was afraid to open my heart again, terrified the girls would get hurt. But you proved me wrong. Ethan leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. I'm still trying, every day, to be worthy of you and the girls. Vanessa smiled, reflecting on their journey, from painful separation through courtroom battles to this peaceful home. Mom, Dad, come here, Ava called, waving from the garden. Zoe held up a new drawing, a family of 4, Vanessa, Ethan, Ava, and a baby. I drew a new baby, Zoe announced, her eyes shining. Vanessa and Ethan exchanged a look, then laughed. What a coincidence, Vanessa said, placing a hand on her stomach. I have some news. You two will have a little sibling, about 7 months from now. Ava squealed and jumped in delight. Really? I want to name the baby, Zoe added. Will the baby have eyes like ours? Ethan hugged them close, his voice choked with emotion. No matter what the baby looks like, they'll be part of our family. He looked at Vanessa, love shining in his eyes. Thank you for everything. Under the twilight sky, their family huddled close, Ava and Zoe buzzing with dreams of being big sisters. Vanessa leaned against Ethan, feeling his heartbeat steady beneath her cheek. She thought of David, of Evelyn, of all the losses that had led them here. I love you, she whispered. And this family. Ethan kissed her, his smile glowing. I love you too, Vanessa. Always. As the stars began to sparkle above, Ava pointed to the sky. Look, Dad. The stars are waving at us. Ethan looked up, thinking of his mother, and whispered, Hello, Mom. Thank you. He wrapped his arms around his family, knowing this was true wealth. Not money, but love, laughter, and the quiet, perfect joy of moments like these.